My name's Betty McCracken. I work for the Monacan district. As you all know, I saw Keith in here giving his report. I'm a part of that group. I'm a conservation specialist, and I have been asked to do this for several years. And so now here we are, all the stars have aligned, and we're ready to go. This is one of the tools I have in my toolbox. I am at my job, I do about 40% environmental education, and I do about 60% with cost share. I heard Keith giving you statistics for the cost share program, so I work with that quite a bit. So this is just one of the tools I have in my toy box, and I found that even though I have designed my presentation for children or elementary age children, it's the grown-ups that get pulled in to the whole presentation, because by the end they tell me, oh boy, do I have a story for you, and the third graders just love it. So you'll see what I mean in a few minutes. So this is my groundwater model. One of the SOLs in third grade is soil and particles of sizes of particles in soil. So this kind of demonstrates how water goes through those sizes of particles. I have very fine sand in the model. I have tiny molecular size, well, not molecular size, but very tiny silt down here. Silt and clay are kind of lump them together and tell them that they're the size of flour particles. And then there are small pebbles, small gravel size material in the model. And so in a few minutes, we're going to kind of make a mess in the model. And one thing that they really like to see is when I let the water out. So now I'm letting that column of water is gone. You see there's one bottle of water entering the model, and there is water exiting the model. And I like to think of this model similar to the shape of Virginia. We have mountains in the west, and we have an ocean to the east. So water is traveling through the model via gravity. And this kind of mimics what's going on under our feet, even if you don't realize that water is moving underneath your feet. And there are all sizes of particles under our feet that water moves through. We also have some things. Now this model is 2 years old for me. The other model, I used it for 11 years and I just wore it out. So this is kind of new, so I'm kind of still adjusting to it. I'm not necessarily fond of all of the titles on the front of the model, because kids don't necessarily have to know what an artesian well is or an artesian aquifer, although aquifer is one of their vocabulary words for the students that I work with. And they do need to know about lakes, and they do need to know about point source pollution and non-point source pollution. So come on in, we're real non-formal. I'm going to tell you like I tell the kids, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see right there. But I'm going to call you out. Yes, you come right on in here. So I'm going to be interested in this coarse wedge right here, and we have some viewing stations down in here. I don't usually use those viewing stations, but I am interested in the pumping well and the point source, the lake. You can see I've got a little creek that I can let go with this tubing. I'm not going to do that today, but I can let that go. And depending on how long you watch this model, it does all kinds of things. It can teach up to college level, hydrology. So it's very interesting. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is point source pollution. That's if you can point at something and it is, that it's creating pollution, then it's point source. If you find a bottle in the Chesapeake Bay and you don't know where it came from, that's non-point source pollution. Anybody could have put it in, and that's the hardest kind of pollution to clean up. It's hard to get people to buy in to pick up trash that they didn't put down. So we work a lot with non-point source pollution. By the way, we're getting ready to have, Tucker Park is getting ready to have a river cleanup for the James River Advisory Council, and we're having one on the other side of the river too, at Maidens. And so if you want to just show up, you can show up and help clean up. Last year, over on the Maiden side, we had boaters that put in at Powhatan Park and came down, and they collected 50 tires out of the river. So that is all non-point source pollution. So we specifically, I want to talk about point source. We're going to have this red food coloring represent our septic water, okay? And then I explain to kids what a septic tank is, and if they have a well, then you have a septic tank. And they understand that, and they, we just say we're gonna talk grossology, okay? And so everything that goes down your drain in your house, it comes into that tank, and whoever's in charge of your house, for the painting and keeping the windows all in frame and cutting the grass, those people are also in charge of having your septic tank pumped out. So I'm going to inject some, my bottle has run out. I'm going to inject some, this morning when you got up from bed this morning and you went to school, Powhatan schools just went to school today. So you can think of all the water use in the household. You've brushed your teeth, you flushed the potty, you might have taken a shower, you might have given the dog water or made some oatmeal and washed the dishes. So all that water is going down your drain. Now, if your septic tank is full or leaky, then already look how quickly the pollution has moved through, and it's already gone into the lake. You may not even know that your septic tank is leaky or full. There are some very obvious symptoms. If you have a bad smell that's coming out of your drains, that's a bad sign. If you have sewage backing up into your house, that's a really bad sign. If you have the ground bubbling above your septic tank, that's a bad sign. So, and it smells really bad. That's all those are really bad signs that you need to do something. And by then, it's probably a little too late to just simply get your septic tank pumped out. But would you eat any fish that were swimming in that lake? No. Would you even like to fish in a lake like that? You may not know, of course this is colored water, but your polluted water may not be colored. So it may not even have a smell. So if I was a neighbor to this place here, you can see that. In fact, I brought my little pumping station, and we're gonna remove some water from, where's the pumping well there? If I am next door to these people, and I'm using water out of my well, just like I would normally do, and I'm, cooking chicken or washing my string beans and using water like we would normally use it. You can see, I don't know if I'm making a cone, if it's coming up. Can you see any red in the tank?
Yeah.
I could put some more in there. The kids say, put some more in there. So I'll put some more pollution in there so that you can see. So it's really, actually pumping really fast. Doesn't usually pump this fast. So anyway, like I said, I'm still getting adjusted to this. So there's some more leaky septic water. That's on the top of the ground. While we're doing that, I have 3 wells that are down here in the ground, and I always like to help them understand how water travels through rock if they think it travels quickly through the big rock or the small particles the quickest. So they make their little hypotheses, and then we put blue water in there to race. And so, can you see any blue water yet?
Yeah.
You can?
Wow.
Okay, all right. And then, so that is, I think, in the small, actually, it's really supposed to be in the coarse wedge, but I think it's missed. That second well is down in the small sand, and then this is gonna go down just below that wooden block.
Going all the way down.
It's gonna pop out in that artesian aquifer. You can see it coming around the block now. So, we'll watch that and we vote on which blue line is gonna move the quickest. So, you can already see it moving down here in the larger pebbles there, the small gravel, that it's moving quicker there than it is through the tiny sand, and actually it takes forever for it to go through the tiny sand. And so they learn, and that's one of the things they have to learn about permeability, is that water travels through the small sand slower than it travels through the gravel size. So as long as they understand that we have all sizes of those rocks underneath us, and that the water moves through the rocks from high elevations to low elevations, and that we are affected by the water that is being put into the ground by our neighbors, then we ought to be good citizens and good friends to the earth, and I'm gonna just stop that. And so we shouldn't put anything down the drain that does not belong there, and we should get our septic tanks pumped out so that clearly you can see how it pollutes other things that you wouldn't even think of. And then they like to come by because eventually, now this blue water, I'll just kind of fast forward a little bit for you. There is an artesian well right there. I don't know if you can see it dribbling out of there, but it's filling the lake. And if I stop this, this would all the water would start filling in, and so that could represent the top of the water table. And as we let the water fill in, the top of the water table is rising. Right now, at my house, the water table is really, 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 really low because it is very dry at my house in Western Powhatan. So I hope we get some water. But you see how the blue water's coming up?
Yep.
Now, I didn't put any blue water in there, did I? It's coming up because it's being squeezed out of this area between the clay layer right there. And so it's being squeezed up, but it's obviously moved far enough through the larger pebbles there than these two. And so if you voted for the gravel size rocks, you were right. And that's because of the pore size between the rocks are larger than the pore sizes between the tiny sand. And you can see here, the water from the lake is beginning to feed the groundwater here. So there are all kinds of dynamics with the model. So I would urge you, see all the water that's coming up? It's coming back up in there. If I stop the water from flowing in there, now it's coming back out, and it'll continue to flow with gravity. And so I just wanted to show you this. Jonathan has wanted me to show you this. If you haven't had your septic tank pumped lately, every 3 to 5 years, depending on the size of your family, that you should get it pumped. If not for yourself, you can see what it's doing underground, possibly. So that's all I have for you. I thank you for your very rapt attention.